From eerie roads to haunted houses, the woman in white, or white lady as it's also called, has manifested itself as a common trope in ghost stories and in modern media depictions. When we mean woman in white, or white lady as it's also called, we specifically mean a woman that is essentially a supernatural figure who is wearing white clothes. In the pilot episode of Supernatural, the Winchester brothers deal with the woman in white ghost as one of their first antagonists. Similarly, it seems like the trope comes up in numerous other examples of movies and TV. But where did this trope come from? In the US, there are a few different examples of this urban legend and some similarities between them where we can look at and analyze what connects them all. Avenel, a historic home in Bedford, Virginia, is famous for the haunting of the Lady in White, believed to be one of the Burwell sisters. This white lady, dressed in an antebellum gown and carrying a parasol, has been spotted many times. Some speculate she is Mary Frances, who died of typhoid after her marriage. Others believe she could be Letitia, who died while fighting her sister Rosa over ownership of Avenel. The Burwell sisters recorded unexplained knockings on the walls and disturbances that continue to this day. Union Cemetery, Connecticut, which just happens to be located near the Warrens' abode, they have to insert themselves everywhere of course, is apparently haunted by a woman in white. Some think she could be the ghost of a woman who died in childbirth and is still searching for her baby. Others speculate it's the ghost of a woman who murdered her husband in the late 1940s. She is often described as wearing a white nightgown or wedding dress and moving between Union Cemetery in Easton and Stepney Cemetery just down the road in Monroe. Sometimes this white lady suddenly appears in the middle of Route 59, seemingly getting hit by a car. However, when the driver stops to check, they find no trace of her. For years, there have been numerous sightings of the White Lady of Wopsy Mountain. According to local folklore, many have seen a woman in a long, flowing white gown standing along the winding Wopsy Mountain Road near Devil's Elbow. Some say she holds a candle, while others claim she carries a lantern. Many drivers have stopped to offer her a ride down the steep mountain. She silently accepts, smiling. However, when drivers check their rear view mirror, they can't see her reflection, though she remains visible in the back seat. Before reaching bottom of the mountain, near Devil's Elbow, the woman asks to stop. When the driver asks the nearby house to inquire about the young woman, he learns that she was tragically killed in an accident years ago. In another version of the tale, the ghost seeks revenge, targeting both men and women as she floats on the eerie mountain breezes, hoping to crash their car. Several other variations of this story exist, but the earliest tale seems to begin between 1891 and 1903. In some, the woman committed suicide after losing her newborn. In others, the bride drove her carriage off the road, killing her husband after discovering his infidelity during their honeymoon. In Latin America, one of the most famous urban legends surrounding ghost stories is La Llorona, and she has a decent amount of derivative stories about her. So for starters, La Llorona means weeping woman, and in modern interpretations, she's wearing the color white. In these legends, she is often seen near bodies of water, serving as a cautionary tale for children to not play near these bodies of water. In these variations, it is thought that she killed her own child by drowning them after her husband died because they reminded them of him so much. In other variations, she may also start pursuing you if she sees you from afar, chasing after you until you make it safely home. Still others, she is thought to tempt men to their death by seducing them before revealing her face to be only bones. It is not exactly known where the stories of La Llorona originate. One of the earliest forms was written and dated in 1866, that is titled as follows: El Pozo de la Llorona, or The Well of the Weeping Woman. The story revolves around King Pedro the Cruel's reign, during which he monitored villages like Rota. In Rota, there was a powerful but cruel Castellan, notorious for his lawlessness and brutality. A poor local fisherman lived with his beautiful daughter, Elvira, who helped with fishing and attended festivals. Despite warnings from her father about the Castellan's rumored crimes, which included the killing of several children, Elvira, driven by vanity, sought to win his favor, believing it would elevate her status. One day, the fisherman saved the Castellan's life. Elvira met him and then soon vanished. Her father suspected she was at the castle and pleaded for her return, but Elvira arrogantly claimed she had traded her poor life for luxury. The next day, the townspeople found the Castellan hanged by the order of King Pedro for his crimes. Elvira, now ridiculed by the village, fell into despair and threw herself into a well. Legend has it that Elvira's spirit rises each night at midnight, wandering the streets and castle, lamenting her pride and fate, earning her the title of La Llorona. So there's nothing about a woman in white in the story exactly. However, Stephen Winnick, a folklorist at the American Folk Life Center of the Library of Congress, writes that this early version from Spain is intriguing. It is set in the reign of Pedro I, 1350 to 1369, shortly before the earliest White Lady tales discussed by Kirtley. More about what he means by this later. As you can see, the woman in white runs internationally, but it also spans time, and there's a specific time period that is probably responsible for the popularization of these tales more than any time else. That is the Gothic Fiction era, where horror stories truly thrived. This period is responsible not only for the resurgence of ghost stories, spiritualism, which led to ghost hunters, and solidifying the horror genre, it also seemed to be partially responsible for spreading the woman in white trope. The very early Gothic fiction stories were sometimes set in decaying castles. At the same time, many white lady stories also were set in castles. But I would also like to bring up The Fall of the House of Usher, 1839 by Edgar Allan Poe, which does not technically have a ghost, but the reign of terror Madeline goes on after she's buried alive does resemble the woman in white trope, despite not actually being dead, because she does literally wear white and goes on a revenge spree. Specifically, White Lady tales are theorized to have come from Germany. More importantly, the White Lady of the Hohenzollern family is a famous ghost story associated with several castles of the family, particularly in Germany. The legend dates back to the 15th century and is tied to the Hohenzollern dynasty, which ruled over Prussia and later became a part of the Holy Roman Empire. The ghost is said to be the spirit of a noble woman, often identified as Kunigunde von Orlamünde. I think I'm saying that right. A widow who allegedly murdered her 2 children so she could marry a man who didn't want to be burdened with children. However, upon learning of the crime, he rejected her. Stricken by guilt, Kunigunde became a nun and spent the rest of her life in repentance. The White Lady is said to appear before a member of the Hohenzollern family dies, serving as an omen of death. She has been sighted at multiple Hohenzollern castles, including the Plassenburg, Berlin, and Ansbach castles. The ghost is typically described as wearing a long white gown, with a veil covering her face. The first recorded mention of the White Lady legend dates to 1486 at Bayreuth Castle, where she often appeared when cavaliers wanted to drive away visiting rulers and their courts. a figure in a white gown was reportedly wandering the halls of Plassenburg Castle. Really, though, it was a court lady, dressing up as a ghost. One version of this story tells of a man who, while dressed up as the White Lady to scare the Hohenzollern family, fell down the stairs, possibly while he was drunk. Either way, the man died from a broken neck. Interesting that one of these earliest examples of this modern White Lady has evidence of being a hoax itself rather than a supernatural tale. So we have seen examples of the women in white emerging in these modern tales, both in urban legends, alleged hauntings, and from writers immortalizing these tales on paper. However, that is not where this story ends, because it seems like the woman in white trope actually stems from at least the Middle Ages, if not earlier. In Celtic folklore, banshees are supernatural beings, warning of imminent death. Banshees are often described in varying forms, either as a young woman, motherly figures, or old hags. The most common feature is their white or grayish robes, but in some stories they are seen with a green dress with a gray cloak. The most iconic trait of a banshee is her wailing or lamenting. This cry is said to be heard right before someone is about to die. So this is obviously reminiscent of the La Llorona cry, as well as being an omen of doom from the Hohenzollern White Lady tales. In French, German, and Dutch folklore, white women or white ladies are translated literally from each of their respective languages. These white ladies are mythological beings, similar to elves and fairies. In French, they are named Dames Blanches. In German and Dutch, they are the Weissfrauen and Witte Wieven. It's theorized that these mythological and folklore beings are what inspired White Lady urban legends. Thomas Cately, a writer and expert in European folklore, has said the French versions of these white women are said to linger in narrow passageways, such as ravines, fords, and bridges, where travelers cannot easily avoid them. The Dame Blanche often demands the attention of those who cross her path. Sometimes she asks her victims to join her in a dance or help her across a plank. If they comply, she shows her gratitude with polite gestures before disappearing. However, refusal comes with a price. Another Dame Blanche was believed to haunt narrow wooden bridges. She would sit on the bridge, barring passage until travelers knelt before her. Those who resisted were handed over to her minions, creatures that were cats, owls, and other beings, who tormented them. As far as the German Weissfrauen, Jacob Grimm, in his Deutsche Mythologie, 1835, writes, "For the origin of these white women, we need not go to the Celtic matrons and fays, who are closely related to them. Our own antiquity brings us to beings nearer still. Elfins and swanwives appear in white shiny garments. Among goddesses may be named three in particular, of whom the white woman, and finally the nun, might be the outcome. Holda, who in the very same way combs and bathes in the midday sun. Berta, white by her very name, who spins and weaves. Ostara, to whom the people offered up May lilies." For the Dutch variant, Witte Wieven, these were creatures who were also elf-like, but lived in mounds or hills by the name of Timilai. Mist floating around these hills was seen as the spirit of a wise woman returning, which prompted offerings and requests for help from these spirits. One more thing. Remember the White Lady tales in Wopsy Mountain, Pennsylvania? Well, as it turns out, German immigrants settled in the area near Wopsy Mountain. It's possible that these folks are responsible for the spreading of the White Lady tales, possibly as a prank like the Hohenzollern family, or as folk stories. I think an important part to remember with urban legends and folklore like this is that there is no one origin point. Thomas Cately, the folklorist which we just talked about earlier, has said that it's impossible to trace a single origin for urban legends like this, and rather that these parallel experiences make more sense than having a single source, because human nature is uniform, and similar experiences and responses are shared across mankind. So to conclude, the woman in white or white lady ghost trope has roots in urban legends around the world. Gothic fiction has had its hand in deepening society's curiosity in the supernatural, while also popularizing the horror genre as a whole. The woman in white has spread to Europe and the Americas while maintaining much of the same characteristics from the German telling. Finally, the mythologies of pre-Christian Europe contains the entities that are most likely responsible for being the origin point of the White Lady tales. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Thanks.